When Tim and I purchased Château de Purnon nearly 6 years ago now, the advanced state of decay of the chateau itself and all the outbuildings meant that this exceptional domain was on the brink of being lost forever. And we knew that our journey to save the chateau would be full of challenges. We knew that our existence here would be uncomfortable at times. We knew that the journey would be exciting. We knew that it would be long and hard, and we also knew that it would be full of highs and lows. And sometimes our morale hits rock bottom when things don't go to plan, when there's delays and hold-ups and it feels like we are making no progress at all. And then there are weeks like this week where our morale soars and it feels like our journey to save and reawaken the chateau is making great progress. So come with me and I'm going to take you on a tour of all the work and progress that has been made at Château de Purnon this week. Well, let's start right here on the front terrace, and you can see behind me that one of our stonemasons is working on the restoration of the faux door that leads to our grand salon. Why is this a faux door? Well, it is there just to create symmetry on the facade. Remember, Château de Purnon is a Louis XVI chateau. It is neoclassical and everything here is about symmetry. And so there is a door that faces it, which goes into the Marquis's bureau. Actually, that is now my office, something that we are going to cover in next week's video for you when we cover works that we are doing on the inside of the chateau. But right now you can see that Manu has removed all the old render. He is now redoing the render and then the painting will be redone. What about the terrace itself? Well, remember that all the paving was brought up as our architect instructed our stonemasons to uncover the original 18th century drainage system. That system has now been uncovered and some of it will be reinstated to use for our new drainage system, because the copper downpipes that come off the new copper guttering on the roof are now going to feed into the original 18th century system. There are also some channels that were uncovered that are going to allow us to run electrical conduit in through the channels and get some electricity to areas that have never had electricity before. It will allow us to put lighting here on the terrace and also run electricity down through one of the channels that leads down to the balustrades in front of the cour d'honneur, and this means that we will also be able to have electricity and lighting on the cour d'honneur. And so next, let's go to the bridge and see what our stonemasons have been up to out there. Well, the work that our stonemasons have done on the restoration of Purnon's Bridge has been nothing short of masterful, but this week they have been working on something exceptionally exciting. On either side of me you can see the pedestals. The lions were too tired to restore, the stonework was too degraded. They were removed from the pedestals and they are now in the workshop of our sculptor, who is in the process of creating exact replicas of the two lions. But in the meantime, the pedestals needed to be replaced. The stonework of the pedestals was also too degraded to keep. This week our stonemasons have completely replaced the pedestals. They removed the old degraded stone, they cleaned the pedestals, they crafted new stones, they braved the snow to get this work done, which has now been completed. And the pedestals are ready for the return of Purnon's majestic lions to once again look out over the Chateau Park. Well, here in the Moat there is so much happening. Here to my right you can see the restored metalwork. The bars that protect the windows down here in the basement in the Moat are being installed by our stonemasons. Why are our stonemasons installing them? because all the stonework around these windows was restored. This one is quite particular because you can see that it has chicken wire, it then has the iron grill, and it then has shutters. This is because this was the garde-manger, the food storage where the cheese and the meats were stored, so it needed proper ventilation. But something very exciting is happening here. You can see the work to complete the downpipes is underway, but why is this so exciting? It is just a downpipe. Actually, it is so much more than a downpipe. This signifies that our roofers are back on site after months of delays, and you can hear that the domain is again echoing with the sound of the roofers nailing the slate to Purnon's roof. We are going to head up to the roof in a minute, but our stonemasons have been incredibly busy down here as well. Down here underneath the bridge, our stonemasons have been working on the finishing render. You can see it all around me, and this render is very particular. We have explained it in previous videos, but it's 3 coats of render that our stonemasons use. The first coat is to create a flat surface. The second coat is done with the colour of the actual render. This render colour is gained from the sand in the forest in front of the chateau to make sure it's an exact match to the 18th century render. But then a very specific technique is used to apply this render. It is a different technique which is used to the rest of the chateau. Down here in the moat, we are in the basement level, and Purnon's architect chose to use a more rustic render down here, a more noble render on the top floors, but here was for access by domestic staff, and so didn't require the same beautiful finishing as the rest of the chateau. It is a rustic render that is applied by flicking a brush, and you get this incredible texture. This has now been completed, and the only task remaining to do down here underneath the bridge is the replacement of the door. This door here goes into the basement. It was the main access for the domestic staff working here at Purnon. It was blocked up at some point, so what we have done is we have reopened this. All the stonework has been restored, and now we are waiting for the door to arrive. There is some work to do with the paving here. The level of the paving has changed, so our architect instructed our stonemasons to do a test dig to see if they could find the original level of the paving. This is a little uncertain at the moment as to what they've found. Our architect will be here in a couple of days for his monthly site visit, and he will no doubt have some insights. But let's keep looking at the progress in the moat. You can see behind me one of our roofers, Kevin, is working on another one of the downpipes. There are 3 downpipes on each side of the chateau. This is the 4th one that he is working on at the moment. The other 2 can't be accessed due to the scaffolding. The scaffolding cannot come down until the work on the restoration of the roof is completed, and we are about to head up there and see where they're up to. But down here in the moat, our stonemasons have been working non-stop on the restoration of the western side of the chateau. Let's go and have a look. This is the very final section of Purnon's facades that need to be restored. So what's happening here? Well, our stonemasons are replacing the entire stone band that sits at the base of the chateau here. You can see that some of the sections here have already been completed. You can see sections over here where the degraded stone has been removed and new stones are going to be put in place. And then they have also restored the stonework around the door that enters the basement from this side. All the old render that was too degraded to keep in this section has been removed. The render will be the very final stage of the works here and will depend entirely on the weather. When the weather gets too cold, it will block them until the weather improves. So it will depend how much they can get done before it does get too cold here. But now let's head up to the roof and see what our roofers are up to. cannot tell you the number of times I've knocked my head exiting this tunnel. Well, up here on top of the scaffolding, the noise that we have grown to love so much has finally returned. The sound of our roofers attaching the slate to Purnon's roof is back. So just a little recap what happened. The quarry that was supplying the slate for the roof here was unable to source one of the shapes shingles that we need on Purnon's roof. There are 3 different shaped shingles required to complete the restoration of this enormous roof. A straight shingle, a convex shingle and a concave shingle. And the convex and the concave cannot be swapped. There is a definite front side and a back side. So we've had quite a few questions about that. But finally, the delivery has been made. Our roofers have just 2,000 slate shingles left to lay on this roof. A reminder that Purnon's roof requires 47,000 slate shingles, each shingle cut by hand, secured by 2 copper nails in the traditional way that the roof was constructed here at Purnon in the 18th century. So we have progress here on the roof, which we are very excited about, but there is something that's happened inside this week, which we're just as excited about. Let's go take a look. Well, I've brought you up here to the attic of the chateau to show you this. This is electricity and lighting for the very first time up here in Purnon's billiard room. This room is the largest room in the chateau. It is the highest room in the chateau. And that is not the only thing that's happened up here recently, because come and have a look at this. These are the restored windows to the billiard room. These windows were removed very early on in the restoration project, so it has been years since we have had windows up here. These are the original 18th century windows that have been restored and put back in place, as are the shutters, the original 18th century shutters. So a big milestone up here in the billiard room. But our electrician has been busy working on other areas of the attic as well. Come and have a look. So the electrician has not only put lighting in the billiard room for the first time, but there is now lighting up here in the attic. Oh, sorry, Tim's up here. Babe, what are you up to?
So I'm just up here installing more of our Xsense smoke detectors. Obviously here in the attic, if a fire was to start, it could burn for a long, long time before we got any warning of it at all. So these smoke detectors are really, really important for protecting the chateau against probably its greatest risk, which is the risk of fire. And we know the Xsense smoke detectors are absolutely fantastic for us because they're all integrated. So when one is triggered, they are all triggered. So even if one went off here in the attic and we couldn't hear this particular one ringing somewhere else in the building, we would get a warning from the triggering of the other alarms. Also, of course, it's on the app, which means we'd get a warning even if we weren't here at the chateau or if we're out in the park working or something like that, which gives us great peace of mind. We had a few questions when we featured these Xsense smoke detectors earlier. People asked, well, what happens if your Wi-Fi goes down, which is certainly something that could happen in the event of a catastrophic fire. Well, once the smoke detectors have already picked each other up, they'll then work independently of the Wi-Fi in the event of a fire. So the Wi-Fi failing is no problem at all for these smoke detectors. They'll still trigger each other and work exactly as planned. So we've had about 40 to install. Most of them have gone in, but there's a final few still to go. And now with light here in the attic, it's much easier to put these last few up. So that's in. Let's do a test. I've got my hearing protection on.
Okay, so we test off the app, Attic East, online. Ready?
Yep.
Device test. Device is being tested. Samash.
Yep.
It works.
Very good.
Perfect. Well, that is a wrap on a huge week here at the Chateau with progress on the restoration of the roof, the facades, the bridge, work happening on the interiors, and next week we are going to share with you some work that's happening on the interiors that is a major milestone and something that I could not be more excited about personally. Otherwise, as always, if you would like to follow the restoration of Château de Purnon more closely, we post an exclusive weekly video for our Patreon and YouTube members. We post frequent updates on all our social media channels, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Otherwise, just hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and we will keep you updated here. See you next week.